Veronica Puente, and I had the honor to work under the mentorship of Dr. Selena Castro. My research focuses on the academic impact of culturally and non-culturally student organizations on Latino males in college. So some points of discussion that I'll be discussing throughout this presentation. I'm going to talk generally about the gender gap within higher education, so enrollment, performance, and persistence, and then furthering it down into the gender gap of bachelor degree attainment. But within this gender gap, I'm going to look at the Hispanic population due to their to the female overrepresentation in degree attainment, and then looking at Latino males in college. Within the Latino males, looking at familismo and the importance of this towards academic achievement, and then furthering it down to Latino-based student organizations and how familismo aspects are found within these organizations. Introduction. This study mainly analyzes the gender gap within the Hispanic population, focusing on the familismo aspects that are found in organizations and its impact on Latino males' academic achievement. So first off, I want to talk about the gender gap in generally. So persistence, performance, and enrollment. And some patterns that we're seeing is high school dropout rates. So this is a gender gap that has arisen from an early stage before entering college. So we see that 7% of females dropped out in the United States, whereas the dropout rate for males is 9.1%. And if this gender gap begins at this point, when it comes to enrollment, there's also another gap that shows the persistence of females compared to males. And we see that 43% of males enrolled in college in 2009, whereas 57% of females enrolled in college in 2009. Looking at performance, literature has addressed that males are more likely to get lower grades than their female counterparts. And some reasonings behind this that they have mentioned is sex segregation in majors. And what this is referring to is mainly how females are in social sciences, humanities, or vocational fields like health and education. And in these fields, grades they're not as hard to attain as where the fields that males are represented, which are physical sciences, technology, engineering, and computer sciences. And then the persistence. Higher value of completion has been attributed to females, where they value the outcome that comes of completing college compared to their male counterparts. So these are reasonings behind the general gender gap within the female and male college students. Looking at the bachelor degree attainment gender gap, we see a drastic change. From 1976, we see that 46% of females attained a bachelor's degree compared to the 54% of males. Now, going from this point to what it is today in 2009, it was reported that 57% of females attained a bachelor's degree compared to 43% of males. So you can see the complete transition of females being below male in bachelor degree attainments to now, whereas females are overpassing their male counterparts. And one important aspect of this that literature has mentioned is on-time enrollment. And this is really important towards the persistence once in college towards that bachelor's degree attainment. And what has been mentioned is that female students are more likely to enroll on time into college, whereas males are 50% less or more likely to expectations of dropping out, of possibly dropping out, even before they step in a college classroom. And this is at college entry. Whereas their female counterparts don't have higher expectations of dropping out. And then another important aspect is social and cultural value. And this has been attributed also to this gender gap, where females have been noted as having stronger social networks and social attachments compared to males who have weaker social networks. And this is where I come in to try to look at the cultural capita, or familismo, which is a cultural value within Hispanic population. And familismo has various aspects, and it can be referred to as familism, familialism, or family. And the first perspective of familismo within the Hispanic community is expectations. So literature has mentioned that students are less likely to persist in college due to the expectations that they perceive of their families. So staying physically close to them, meaning staying at home rather than going to college, or staying closer to home. And then obligations. Now, within the Hispanic population, females and males have different obligations. And when it comes to Latino males, their obligations are to provide to their family. And this becomes a struggle for them to attain or persist into college completion, while at the same time trying to provide for their family and follow up on these obligations. Now, the other perspective, which is the one that I'm mostly focusing on for this study, is the importance of familismo towards academic achievement. And it has been noted as a main support for Latino students' achievement, and mainly the adjustment. So those students who perceive the family support are have better adjustment in college. While again, the encouragement. And what has been noted through the literature is that even though parents are not fully involved, if students value familism and parental involvement, even though the parents are involved, they perceive it, and they're more likely to achieve academically. In turn, this comes to self-efficacy. Hispanic students who have this value of familism have a stronger belief in themselves in being able to attain a bachelor's degree, so more self-confidence. Now, looking at the familism aspect, and as I went through literature, I also found important patterns of student academic achievement, such as peer support. Now, peer support in literature in general, among all racial and ethnic groups, has been attributed as important for shaping that persistence in college. When it comes to Latino males specifically, those students that are falling behind their female counterparts at greater rates, we see that those males that come into college and are able to have a responsive social network are more able to persist through college. So the purpose of the study, the main reasons why I'm studying this area is because the Hispanic population today is 16.1% of the population in the United States, according to the Census Bureau. And it's continuing to increase. However, students among this population are still falling behind in degree completion, are dropping out at higher rates compared to other racial and ethnic minorities. And also, the familism has been repeatedly attributed to academic achievement, and I want to further investigate how this has an impact on a Latino male student population. And the main reason is that literature has not really addressed familism. It hasn't really looked into it, combining it with academic achievement. Even though they see that influence, they haven't searched further to investigate what factors are helping these students achieve academically once in college. So my main research question, looking at both organizations and also the gender gap in general and the gender gap in the Hispanic population, I'm trying to figure out, do Latino student organizations provide familism aspects within the Latino community? And along with this, looking at my hypothesis, so I assumed based on the familism aspect and that importance to academic achievement, combining it with the peer support in general and the influence Latino-based student organizations will provide that familism aspects and contribute to the students' academic achievement. For my study, I did survey format, and this survey, thanks to the help of my mentor, we were able to structure it in a way that to look for the main aspects, familism and academic achievement. And I was able to create it on my own, and also it was self-administered questionnaire, and the way I was able to receive responses from students, the Office of Registrars here at Washington State University provided me emails of Latino males who identified themselves as Hispanic, and through that I was able to email them my link. My survey was on SurveyMonkey, and I sent them the link. And also I was supported through other organizations, and this link was sent to certain specific organizations to get more participants. And students were able to say, yes, I do consent to participate, or no, I do not consent to participate on the survey. There was an option for them, so they could either go on and complete it or say, no, I do not. And my survey was broken up into two sections, mainly the involvement of Latino-based student organizations and non-Latino-based student organizations. And students who participated in the study were required to be involved in either of these organizations. Some demographics of my participants, most of my participants were males. That was my population of focus. And these students identified themselves as Hispanic. And also, mostly were seniors in both organizations. And overall, I had 33 participants, 16 in the Latino-based student organizations, and 17 in non-Latino-based organizations. So my survey mainly compared the Latino-based student organizations to the non-Latino-based organizations, focusing on those two aspects, academic achievement and familism. And familism, I focused it by looking at family types of support and how that was present in both organizations and comparing it. And academic achievement was measured by GPA. And this is a sample question of the Latino-based organization requesting their involvement, so seeking out what organizations they were involved in. And the students were able to provide various organizations. And these were the participating organizations, but the students also had an option to provide other in case an organization was not listed. But at the same time, I asked the students, what organization are you involved the most with, in order to see the priority organization that the students were mostly involved with. And similarly, I did the same with the non-Latino-based organizations, utilizing different types of organizations, from organizations in the major, community service organizations, organizations of government, Greek, and also I provided the option of other in case something was not listed. And just for similarly as the Latino-based, I provided the option of providing that organization that they were mostly involved in, so that priority organization. In order to figure out what types, or the familism support in these organizations, I asked the students, what types of support does this organization provide you with? And I looked at academic support, friendship types of support, and family-like support. And I also provided the students with the option of other in order to see if there was other supports that they perceived from these organizations. My results, so the blue is culturally based or Latino-based organizations, and the red is non-Latino-based organizations. And looking specifically at the family-like support, what was found is that students reported higher percentage of family-like support in Latino-based organizations compared to those that were in non-Latino-based organizations. Students in non-Latino organizations were more likely to say that they received friendship support. And then the other types of support that were stated was financial support, supports in overall of these types of support, supports in all areas of life, and also teammate support. So specifically looking at the family-like support, there was a higher GPA of average of students who were in Latino-based organizations, and stated and the average GPA of those students involved in Latino-based organizations was higher than those in non-Latino-based organizations. The importance of this study, and my conclusion out of it, is that familism can be mostly found in Latino-based organizations, and it is correlated with higher GPA. Along the lines, these organizations are important for students, specifically Latino males, students' academic achievement due to their weak social networks that are attributed within literature. And these organizations are important to be available at university campuses in order to help these students persist once they're in college, because their parents no longer are there, so that familism is a little weaker than what it was once they were home. Some limitations that I had as I went through my research, I had low number of participants. I only had 33 respondents. I also only sampled male students. I was not able to sample female students. And I did not look at other aspects of familism, such as the expectations or obligations that Latino students have or perceive from their families. Also, this survey was self-administered, so there could have been a bias on the reports of the GPA or the reports of the family life support or the types of support. For future research, I would like to further this research doing qualitative, so asking questions, trying to figure out what or how does family life support really help these students, and trying to make it more subjective. And also comparing Latino males to Latina females, since there is that gender gap overall in the United States, trying to see if there's a difference in support, as well as literature mentions that females have a stronger social network, to see if that's correlated with Latino-based organizations. And then Latinos in the United States is a big umbrella that breaks down into various ethnic groups, and I perceive that there's differences among these Latino groups, and it would be important to differentiate and see if there's more need in a specific ethnic group. And then also trying to see if the involvement of students who are still in college and persisting is different than those that have discontinued college. That would be important, especially looking at the familism and seeing if there was expectations or obligations for those students to discontinue, compared to the familism perspective of students who are still here and seeing the strengths among those. These are the references that I utilized through this presentation. And before I conclude, I would like to thank most of all my faculty mentor, Dr. Selena Castor, for her support throughout this research, and also McNair Achievement staff for their support and encouragement, and my McNair colleagues who have always been there, but also staff and faculty of Washington State University, who I'm very thankful that many of them were able to join today. Thanks to their support, this presentation and this research was also possible. Thank you very much.
What did you like most, and what did you also think was the hardest part of your research?
What I liked most was actually having the results, because when I looked at literature and they mentioned that familism was a very important aspect of academic achievement among Latinos in general, I wanted to see if it had a similar aspect within Latino males, especially because it had the weak social network. And when I found the results that it did attribute, it made me really happy, and it's what I liked the most, because it provided me more information to see that there is needs among this population, and that there is reasonings why Latino males are falling behind their female counterparts. What was a little challenging was getting more participants to fill out my survey. The finding specific needs of why we see this complete change from 1976 to 2009, whereas females are overpassing their male counterparts. And I think this is very important specifically for the economic and the labor market here in the United States, especially as we're continuing to try to get out of recession.
Well, in that case, I have one comment, one question. So there's a study that I thought of when we were presenting, and this study was interesting, and I think it might be interesting as you pursue this. And they were looking at family formation, marriages, and fertility, number of children. And what they found is that first generation immigrants to the United States, their family of origin is very important. And then third generation, they look like everybody else. I'm not exaggerating. And that second generation is really quite confusing because they have a foot in two worlds. And I was thinking of the importance of family of origin. And again, with this study, you didn't have a chance, but I think that might be interesting, not just the differences among different countries of origin, in terms of differences among the Hispanic community, but you might want to keep an eye on, if you do this, on the generation, because I think family would be very important for first generation students especially, because they would really be oriented towards that. And then the question is, actually a 2.75 GPA isn't sending up red flags of dropouts. And so one of the things with your study design is that you're getting people who are doing the right things, because they're not only going to school, but they are, even if they're not getting what they want, they're seeking out social and cultural networks that will help them succeed. And so one of the things with your self-administered is that you're probably sampling people who are already doing the right thing. And so what would you do if you were to start over and you have a lot more time, and it's not McNair, and if you're really looking at this, what would you do to the study to try to get at the people who are really at risk of dropping out, male and female?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, this study actually, the organizations or the involvement of students was at a medium, or what would scholars call a medium. They weren't overly involved, so they were involved in 5 or more organizations, or they were under-involved, just 1 or none. So I think that if I had more time, I would be interested in comparing Latino males and their involvement, because again in this one they were at a good point. They were only involved with 2 or 3 at the most in general, so both Latino and non-Latino. So I think to further understand and try to find the red flags of students that are at risk of dropping out, probably comparing that involvement and that perceived family-like support. So if they're involved in only 1 organization and they do perceive family-like support but not as much, trying to see if that can be a factor of them being at risk of dropping out. And trying to compare it to, because I think involvement, like you're saying, social networks are very important for students, but then looking at the cultural value within these also plays a big role in ensuring that they're persisting once in college. I don't know, does that answer the question?
Well, no, it does go in the right direction. And so here's some advice. It would be very hard, it would be very time-consuming. And that's the reason I asked what you were presenting. What would be interesting would be to go and to get cooperation of the registrar's office for incoming freshmen, and then asking people questions before they have a chance to do the right thing or wrong thing. And I suspect, and I don't know, the people who would be of great interest are the people who disappear between their freshman and sophomore years.
Yeah.
And that's where people don't have a chance to join or have attachment. And I don't know, I have no idea what that would look like, and it'd be a very difficult study.
Yeah, and also doing maybe a longitudinal study.
Yes.
And looking from points of the first year to the last year, and seeing if those first year students, if they actually graduated, because that's what I'm mainly looking at, the bachelor degree attainment, which Latino males are, and males in general are actually, falling behind their female counterparts.
Exactly. And that, so longitudinal is what I was hoping you'd say, because I think that would be a difficult study, and you have to really get everything like that, but I think it would be very powerful.
Thank you though for.
So in your study, you looked at participation and what role they play in those organizations. What did you find specifically with leadership?
With leadership, Latino-based organizations, so students who were involved in these actually had higher positions of leadership. So there were either presidents or much as compared to being a president or chair. So that could be also another